coming tonight, but thank you guys for coming. I don't know how many of you guys that are here actually are in the floodplain or near the floodplain. You guys are, but you're not. You're in the city of Round Rock drainage floodplain. So you guys I know are too. Okay. A couple of things, and we're going to turn it over to our guest speakers. A couple of updates on our silent crossings. I think you guys, if you've noticed the one at St. Williams, they finished that one. It's got the arms on both sides of the intersection. They've done the one at Burnett downtown. The last one here to do is the one at County Road 172, but that's a more extensive project because the city has to come in and they have to build a, well, the city's actually not doing it. I think Union Pacific's doing it, but they have to build a median. It's going to be a pretty torn up project for a little while because they have to build it like a median on each side of the tracks to be able to do that. And then once those are built, hopefully we'll get rid of some of these jack wagons that come through here at 2 in the morning and lay on the horn for about 10 minutes while they're going through. So, but again, remember, silent crossing doesn't mean that that you're not supposed to use your horns. It means they don't have to use their horns. If some of them may choose to use it anyway, I don't know, we hope not. So, meetings. We are going to change and go to quarterly meetings with our 2 Facebook pages, and I don't even want to say the word next door because all next door is turned into is a glorified Craigslist. So I subscribe to it just so that I can try to convert all of those next door people back into our regular neighborhood emails and stuff because it gets crazy there. But between all that communication that goes on, and unless there's some big crisis in the neighborhood or some big event, information is sent out mostly through the Facebook pages and our neighborhood emails. So rather than drag everybody down here, all the other monthly meetings, we're going to go to quarterly. So it's going to be January, April, July, and October. And that should cover everything we need unless, like I said, if something comes up. We really haven't had anything significant since the county annex deal, which actually kind of got us going again as a neighborhood association. That's going way back. About 10 years ago, wasn't it? Volunteers, where'd Sandra go? Sandra Beck, back there at the back. She handled our Christmas decorating contest this year. We're kind of edited up. We're trying to get some of the work off Don because he's older than me and I'm getting tired, so I know he's getting tired. So Don did an amazing job of putting the video together. He does a great job with our meeting videos and stuff, but Sandra handled all that. She's not here tonight, but Alyssa Behrens handled the pet clinic the last time. Basically coordinated the volunteers, herded the cats, and got everything, make sure it got done. Oh, that was a pun. Anyway, not literally herding cats, but the volunteers getting them all lined up for the pet clinic. You got the email that I'm not leaving the neighborhood, okay? I'm trying to get retired, but I'm not leaving. I'm going to be backing out of some of the neighborhood stuff, but I'll still be around. There's some younger people coming up and jumping in and volunteering to help with things, and we've been doing it for a long time. And so I'm not going anywhere unless I have a toe tag. So I think that was about all I had here. Any questions from any of y'all before we turn it over to our guest speakers? Okay, we have what I consider, self-disclosure here. I'm on the WCID board, and I ended up being president of it for this year. And we were so blessed to end up with what I call our dream team. Okay, these 2 people sitting right here have forgotten more about floodplains and building dams than most people I know. So we've got them in there, and they're cracking the whip and getting things going. So we have Gregor Forbes, who actually used to be on the board of the WCID, but you worked for LCRA for 20 some years, and Alicia's been with the city of Round Rock for 20 years. And so she is, the 2 of them are, Alicia's our general manager, Gregor,
manager of CID.
Capital Improvement Projects, right.
Yes.
So they're going to come up here and talk about we've got the 100 some odd houses or whatever that are in the neighborhood. We're trying to get them out of the floodplain, talking about herding cats and all the things that we have to go through to get this done. I'm like, we can't just go out there next month and start building a dam. They're going to talk through all of that and what we need to do and how we are pushing forward to get it done as soon as humanly possible. So I'm gonna turn it over to you guys.
Hey, this is like the smallest crowd. We can tell you we haven't had any big raids in a while. So first I do want to, as Mike pointed out, so this is Gregor Forbes, and we're very fortunate. Gregor just was finishing up on the giant LCRA project that's happening down in the valley, and we were able to coax him into retirement and maybe come back to our little area and come to work for us. And why, to me, that's significant is Gregor's not a planner, Gregor's not a modeler, Gregor's not a let's think about it. Gregor builds things. And I think that should give you an idea of like what we're looking at when we were trying to move forward. I was hired to come in and be a general manager. My first thing that before I was even on, I asked for two things. The only way I can come is if the 101 project comes with me, because I was the PM over at this project manager over at the city, and I want to hire Gregor to come in and build things. And so Mike was able to kind of work that through, and so that's what we're doing. So as we get moving forward, you'll probably see more of Gregor in the future. He's getting ramped up sort of on the project. We are fortunate that Gregor was on the board years ago, so he's very familiar with our watershed. He knows what's going on. I don't know if any of y'all have been doing this for a while, but I was showing him, you know, there's a couple of videos if you go back to 2013, 2014 that I've been talking to you guys about these projects. And in general, there's a suite of what we call the Lake Creek flood mitigation projects, okay? 3 projects that collectively are designed to get basically all the homes in the Round Rock West area out of the 1% chance or the 100-year floodplain. If they are all built and managed, they should work for that. And those 3 projects are Dam 101, which is the biggest dam, a smaller dam called 102, and managing the 620 quarry flows. Was anybody here Hermine 2010 when that flood happened? And you may remember all the water that was coming out sort of behind the fire station and beside the recycling. So there's one of the quarries that's still back there. One of the things the city did years ago, while everybody's trying to figure out what to do when you guys were getting hammered in the late 70s, early 80s with floods, is they worked something out with the landowner back there and said, hey, you have a couple of these quarry holes. Can we divert some of this flood water into these holes while we figure out what to do and get some help? And they did that. And one of the ones that, most of them though, over the years, we don't have easements. And if you've ever seen a quarry from above, you'll see, go look on Google Maps sometimes. That hole, it doesn't stay in the same place. Those move around, they stay busy, there's a lot going on. That 621 though is critical because it's this last little piece that we need to control. So if you think about that, we still need that hole there, that's important. We need the big dam 101, which would essentially go at O'Connor and 45, if you think of that space. And then 102 would go kind of 45 in Mopac, and it's much, much smaller. So when they started, kind of September 2010, it started with, we had the big flood of Hermine. The Upper Brushy Creek WCID went back and evaluated all the structures. We had a little bit of damage on the dams, but they did their job, and they did their job tremendously. Very proud. But it was hard to deny that there was flooding everywhere. Besides just you guys here, which are some of the worst, there's flooding sort of throughout our upper watershed. And our watershed goes from all the way back at Leander, all the way down to Hutto. That's what we're sort of responsible for. We have 23 dams in that watershed. And so at that time, the people on the board said, you know, let's study what's going on. What else can we do? Our dams did a good job, but is there something else we can do to help prevent this? So they started the process, they got some grants, they studied it and figured out, you know what? There's some problems out there. And do y'all want to guess where the #1 worst problem is in our entire watershed when you went from Leander to Hutto?
Round Rock West.
Round Rock West, right. And part of it is because you guys were around for so long. This area was built pre-firm. So what that means is it was before we had floodplain maps that anybody even knew. It wasn't that people have done some consciously bad decisions like may have happened in the coast or some of the crazy things that are happening in Houston. Nobody knew. They didn't have floodplain maps. And so they were building all these subdivisions and found out the hard way, right? Okay, so they do this study, they figure out, hey, the worst place is bullseye, Round Rock West. They continued through that study and said, what can we do to sort of solve all these problems, and what are some opportunities where we can put dams in the future to maybe help? We get through that watershed study. That gave us the first glimpse of what we thought were the solutions up here. And at the time when I was on staff at Round Rock, a big part, I used to call it Dam Zero. I said, look, if you look at all the areas that you built the dams, and you look at the size of the creeks, the largest watershed that doesn't have a dam on it is the one that's barreling down on you guys, right? So it's this Davis Branch part of Lake Creek. Eventually we got to an agreement where the district and the city said, you know what, let's start working towards these solutions. And 102, because it's so much smaller, and it's in a less sort of environmentally sensitive, less complicated area, it's just flat and open. It's the area out here that there's not a tree, there's just sort of nothing. So it would have been easier to do. So the district said, hey, we're gonna go build 102, we'll pay for that. And Round Rock said, okay, we're gonna start rolling this rock uphill with 101. We'll start figuring it out, trying to get some ideas and do preliminary design, okay? So we agreed to that, and I think late 2014, we got engineers on board to start design. At the middle of so this is 2019, so basically this is late 2018. 2017, August, we got to both of those projects to what we call 30% design. So now we know a lot more. We have like drawings to sort of give us an idea how big they are, what do they look like, what are they going to cost, gulp, and how well they're going to function, right? And so when we got through that, 101 is now like a $25 million to $27 million build. We still got to pay the engineer and I still got to buy land, okay? But it had gone up quite a bit. 102 had even gone up a little bit because it turned out it wasn't quite as simple, and also during that time we were talking to people about grants. We were hoping, hey, Fed, state, how about help us, right? You're helping everybody else, how about help us? And what we learned was that doing 102, we thought if we did a little project and we showed, look, we're working cooperatively together here, maybe they would chip in, we get some momentum. And what we learned, because 102 just doesn't do a lot of work on its own, it's basically, as I've described to other people, it's the icing on the cake. But if we don't have the cake first, 101 really doesn't do a whole lot of benefit for you guys. And so if we jumped out there and spent that money, bought that land, spent that money, kept going, wasn't going to provide you a whole lot of business, benefit, but we were going to lose the dollars in the process. So September 2017, we get sort of those results, and we've been negotiating, what do we do now? The city and the district. In that time was also the transition of, me flipping teams. So yay, I'm over at the district. I brought 101 with me. So we just signed, we started in September. Gregor and I have been here like 3 months. Since then, we finished a new agreement with the city of Round Rock, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how that changes parameters. And we just had Mike sign today, and we'll get our attorney to finish blessing on Thursday the design contract for Dam 101 to take it to full design. Okay. So what the agreement did was, we said, look, if we don't have enough money to build 101, but that's really where all the workhorse is, let's not go spend money on the icing. Let's go move all the money to 101. Okay. And so what we ended up agreeing was, we're going to shelve 102. That can be done later, hopefully by a developer or whatever, because that's really where it's providing, it's that last little bit. Let's take every bit of resources that the city and the district have right now, and let's focus it on 101, and let's start moving towards the cake. Take some convincing to keep people moving at this point, because that price tag of construction is the same price tag basically it's going to take us to build, that Round Rock's going to build the roadway out here, right? The overpass over the railroad that we've also been waiting for 30 plus years to happen, right? So that they get, and everybody's screaming about, everybody's caught in traffic, but it's hard sometimes to convince people to spend $30 million on something, and they go, well, it's not my problem. Like not even all you guys are in the floodplain, right? But what we keep talking about is let us get it shovel ready. Let us get it shovel ready. So let's buy the easements, and that's critical because back here is not going to be quarries forever. That family's looking to develop, at some point. And we don't want to be where Houston is, where even though they're trying to give Houston billions of dollars, there's almost nowhere to fix Houston. Their only answer left is tunnels. We have a place, we know, and so before anybody steals our parking place, we want to go and reserve that, right? So this agreement says, okay, the district's going to go and we're going to go get those easements. We're going to make sure, even if I can't build this for 10 years, when I do get the money, I will be able to build it, okay? So we're going to start working on those easements. The other part is, Round Rock said, fine, we're going to help pay for, we don't have a whole lot of money either to do this because we've got a lot of other things to do too, but we'll help pay for this next stage of design. So Round Rock's going to write us a check to see, I don't remember exactly how many millions, but 2 million or so that we can get this from 30% to final design. That process, because the reality is even if you gave me the $35 million today, I can't build it today. I got to go through every lettered agency you can think of to get this thing permitted, right? I mean, you just don't build many of these things anymore. So our main agency that we go through is TCEQ. That's who mandates and regulates dams in the state. But we'll also be going through FEMA, the Corps of Engineers, those folks. That's like a 2+ year process anyways. So while Gregor now takes the lead, working with the engineer on designing this thing and figuring out, can we value engineer, can we figure out a more cost-effective way to build it, I'm going to scramble in and continue to work with our board to see where's the partners, right? And so that's where your part comes in. Every time you get a chance to go to a ballot box, or somebody wants to come and talk to you about, hey, I'm running for this, make sure you raise your issue. Well, what are you doing for us, right? We've been here and dealing with this for 30 plus years, and the city's trying, and the district's trying, and we're putting millions out there and we're moving forward, but we need partners. So where are you, county? Where are you, congressman? Where are you, legislature? We'll take anybody we can get, right? And so we're gonna have some opportunities, and we're hopeful. And it used to be we were talking about if, or maybe, and just trying to convince people there was a project. Now people just ask when. When are you gonna do it? That's a good change in momentum. But we need to be realistic that we're gonna have a big ticket when we get there, and I wanna have a bucket of money when Gregor's ready, and then we can build this. But the nice thing is that we've got the plans, and we've got the easements, we don't lose our opportunity to go build it. And that's a really big deal. Because I tried, this structure is actually, there's a little bit more of Round Rock responsibility behind Round Rock West, and then it turns over to Austin. And we tried, this dam is located in Austin's jurisdiction, not Round Rock. So we tried really, really hard to drag it into Round Rock because we thought that would be a lot easier. But just dams have to be where dams have to be, and so it has to be where it is. It landed in Austin, and that's where it is. And that's why it's so critical that we don't lose sort of our parking space, per se. So one-on-one on its own is not going to solve it all. One-on-one on its own does a whole lot of the work, though. So something like 80% of the homes that we're looking at. And we'll, as we move a little further, we'll be able to start giving you real numbers. And the difference is what we did is we came in and surveyed about a dozen homes in Round Rock West when we started this process. And there's sort of three segments. If you think about between Deepwood and Round Rock West and Oak Ridge, right? And so when the water goes over, Oak Ridge is sort of here. When it goes over to Deepwood, it's over here. And, the Round Rock West is somewhere in between. Same thing with the houses. We've got some people that are 6 feet in, and we got some people that are 6 inches, and so it's just barely. So we have 2 or 3 houses that we're looking at. Those are the controls that, okay, if we could get everybody, we won't even be able to, because there's people downstream from you guys, downstream the interstate, Barnett Street, if you know where that is, the last railroad crossing kind of thing. There's still houses over there. We're not going to be able to solve everybody, but we can make a pretty big impact. So that's our goal. That's what we're working towards. This contract, we'll hopefully give them notice to proceed next month in February, and then we'll start that 2.5-year design and permitting process through the agencies while we continue to kind of scramble. And as we move forward in design, we get a little bit closer, we'll be able to do a better job of giving you guys updates of more realistically what are those milestones, and even better, what are the benefits, right? So one of the interim things that came out of when we did that study to go, what are all the problems that are out there? What can we do to solve them? The models, which are what we use to figure out what the flood would look like if it rained a certain amount, were so old here, 20 plus years old, that they weren't really very accurate. So as part of that process that the district took on, they made new models so that they could accurately kind of do this. And so when they did this, and they're like, okay, we're done. Now we know the bad problems and the good problems. All of the cities were like, these models are so great. They would be better if that's what our FEMA floodplains were based off of. Because there's some of you guys who are mapped in floodplains that don't exist. They don't make any sense. Like if you're over kind of Quanah and whatever that other street is over there, Mike, they're not in there. Then there's other areas where it's better, worse. They're cleaning them up. That's what's going on right now. And you may have heard like the new floodplain maps that they're trying to push through. They come out of that. That'll ideally be done maybe this summer is what we're hearing. I'm guessing because of the shutdown, we lost another month or so. But ideally those will become effective. And that's important for us because everything that we're planning for is based off of those, right? We needed to create those most accurate things. So we're confident in the data that's out there. We think we have a realistic plan. We think it solves the overwhelming majority of it. We're still moving forward, slow, but we're moving forward. We have a legitimate agreement, sort of with the city. I mean, that's a big deal for them to put that amount of money in. So we're happy about that. We're putting the pieces in place. And so then we're going to continue to kind of push forward. Legislature's back in session, so we're going to start planting seeds to see, hey, we're hearing about all that money and flooding around the state. Don't forget about us. Just because we're not terrible and because we haven't made things worse. It's almost like we get punished for being proactive. if we had let things get worse and out of control and made more news stories, maybe we'd still get the presence. So that's kind of where we are. Besides building 101, a lot of what we're doing is we have these 23 other dams. And like Mike, they're getting old, you know? They're 50s and 60 years old. And most of them, you know, are giant earthen embankments for the most part, big mound of dirt, a sophisticated mound of dirt, but that's basically what they are. But they have some pipes and fences and whatever, and when we built them, they were built in agricultural land. Everything's redeveloped, a lot's changed, right? So a lot of what we're doing is just going through, a lot of them need quite a bit of overhaul and maintenance. And if we don't, then it gets even more cost expensive. So if you think about, like, so sometimes you'll see the city come through and draw the little black lines on the street, what they call crack sealing. And if they don't do that, what happens is the streets fall apart, then you end up needing to do even bigger things. So the district has been working on modernizing, which is meeting a new sort of state standard, but also evaluating that. So we're fortunate. Gregor and I are coming in on the tail end of them getting this overall assessment of what needs to happen and which dams in first. So we talked about 101 and 102, which are two new dams that need to come, but you guys have Dam 8 and Dam 9 that are upstream of you now, that are out there on Robinson Ranch now. So there's two upstream of y'all that are working all the time. One of the last ones we need to modernize, Dam 8, is up there. And what modernizing does is basically make sure, when we plan, we don't usually talk about 1% floodplains or 100-year. We work off of what they call the probable maximum flood, like Noah's coming, right? 2 by 2 kind of thing. That's what we're required to plan for, because of the very scary, like the things that happened in Houston. At that point, the only thing worse than sort of having a flood is having an instantaneous flood that could happen if a dam failed. So we work at a much, much higher standard to make sure if we get the Noah flood, that we can pass that safely through the dam and not have sort of an instantaneous kind of thing. So we're working on those things too. And so there's a lot of maintenance and updates and, oh my gosh, it's not cattle and farmers anymore, and it's shopping centers, and what happened to my access route? Where did my easement go? And so we're struggling a little bit with development. And we're looking for opportunities with our existing structures. You know, hey, okay, if all these people are gonna develop, where's all that water going? Who's going to detain that? And what's the most cost-effective and efficient way to manage that? Is it them doing the little ponds that people tend to do, and then maybe they're maintained, maybe they're not? Or does it make sense for us to try to make capacity in our structures? And then that responsibility for maintenance is long-term and perpetuity, kind of taken care of with an agency. So that's some of the stuff we're starting to talk with the new board about, you know, where do we go sort of in the future. So with that, like I've already rambled a good 15 minutes or so, I'd be happy to kind of update you guys. The one thing I will say, because I know there's some of y'all, you know, West Roanoke West, not only do you have what we call backdoor flooding, right, from the creeks, which is sort of the worst kind of scenario, you guys are sort of also the champion a little bit of front door flooding, which is coming down the roadways because there's very little storm sewer. The city has been working, they're transitioning from finishing up creek projects to now sort of front door flooding projects. So as I was leaving, they were starting to work through some of that, and including looking at some pilots. It's hard to fix some of the front door problems if the creeks don't work behind y'all, because there's no place to take the water. So I know some of y'all do amazing jobs when you open up your front gate and your back gate to let the water through. We really appreciate that. So we're going to do our part to ideally to try to fix the creek scenario, and that's going to make it easier for the city to fix sort of the front door stuff. But Mike's continuing to work with them. I left some amazing employees behind that I was sad to see go, but you're in good hands. And they're going to start looking at some of the pilot areas that we know that we think we can get up and fix where there is no connection to the creeks, like up there at Abbey and Penny.
There you go.
Yep.
And Bluff. Don't forget Bluff.
Right. Now, all that sort of that first area, right as I was leaving, we were trying to look at, can we do a pilot project here? It doesn't, almost no sensitivity to what's going on at the creek. Right. So we're trying to figure out what to do, and part of what we were doing is piloting, and I don't want to steal a lot of the city's thunder, but some 2D modeling, which is a more sophisticated way of what's going on, and so we can see, and so what you can look at from what they designed it to how really the water really is going, and we learn a lot from that. We can come up with some better decisions, and part of what we were doing, you guys, Chisholm Valley's got some issues, Meadows, you know, basically all the classic old timers, was modeling that to try to get an idea what it would cost, show that to go to the council and say, okay, we finished creeks, thank you very much, and we're almost done spending that money, and we've solved everything we could do, except for, and they know Roanoke West, that's why they wrote us a check to keep playing over here. Now we need to get into our neighborhood, starting the front door. And so that's the next thing that you should hear from your city. And if you have questions, you want to start talking to them about. Because they basically passed the torch and said, okay, district, we need you guys to help and do the creek thing. Because, it's really not even, it's not Round Rock's water, right? It's the region's water, it's Austin's water, it's soon to be Apple's water coming this way. So, happy to, it deserves some.
get Apple to pay for some of that.
I asked, I sell naming rights to anybody who's interested. I've put out a few kind of feelers to see how they look at this to deal with their water, to see if there's something we can do together. They will have their obligations through the city to sort of deal with their water. And there's some ways that they could do it and meet city code of Austin, but there's ways that we might prefer it to be done. And then there's ways that if we did it cooperatively, maybe we could do something better. The only challenge right now is we're on this end of Robinson Ranch and they are building all the way on the other side of Robinson Ranch, right? / quarry / whatever. And I'm not quite sure how if the city would be okay. But yeah, I'm willing to talk to all comers. If you want to build and be proactive and come talk to us and see, can we make room in our existing structure? Can we make room in 101? You want to buy in? Absolutely. We're willing to do that because we'd rather be part of and working with them than just they're doing their thing over here and we're over there. Was there other things that you wanted me to cover?
Any questions at this point from anybody?
Yes, sir.
I lost track. You were talking about the quarry, I guess, as part of the flood plan.
Right up behind you. It's behind you,
That's where
right behind the recycling center.
where the recycling is. So it sounded like you said there was a potential problem, and you were trying to.
So the 620, what we call the 620 quarries, and there's also like the Neal quarries and whatever. There needs to be capacity in that 620 quarry. There's a little waterway that comes under, kind of from the hospital and under 620 and all that.
Right.
It misses all the dams. It goes into that quarry.
Okay.
But over time, that quarry's been continuing to manipulate and move, because the city doesn't have easements, the district doesn't have easements. And so that's the part that's still on the city's thing to figure out, how do we get sort of permanent storage in this quarry? And so several years ago, when I was still with the city, we reached out to the family and go, there's a couple different ways we can do this as far as, because the quarry wasn't designed to be detention, it just happens to work really well. So it's not a very efficient footprint, so it's kind of sprawly and tentacly, and we're like, hey, we could compact this thing where we still get what we need, but it doesn't tie up as much as your land. And so we presented a couple ideas to them, including, when did they do the last blasting? 5 years ago?
You got the Deidre Quarry, when they were blasting behind Creekmont and West Creek Loop was about 5 years ago, wasn't it, Robert?
It was more recent than that. It was more like 3 years ago.
Might have finished up.
So we had talked to them also about that one, like, hey, if you prefer, because someday they're going to want to develop, right? And Deepwood in 620 is going to be like amazing land. But as you get further behind the school and the recycling, not so great. But then you get way behind you guys, and I'm sure you don't want anything back there. Well, now we got another hole there. So like, if you prefer, we could stick some of the water there and keep as much developable land as possible. Or if you prefer, if you want to, make the hole bigger. Because this is the fun thing. They can make holes, no permitting at all. So if they conveniently make us a hole in the right place. So that's sort of where we left it, was we need a hole somewhere, and then we need to figure out an organized way. If it stays at the 620 quarry, we need to figure out a way to have the water come out of the quarry and basically safely pass by the school and get back into the creek. At the time, it was pumping back out of the inlets, and so all the inlets became outlets, and then it basically runs down the roadway, and then it jumps back in the creek. So that's sort of how we got to get our arms around that. And that little project, matter of fact, that we did in front of the school a couple of years ago was part of one of the few front door little pilot things we were doing. But so it's sort of on the city to figure out how we want to do that. And I think they're in conversations. The nice thing is that quarry, that's all within Round Rock's jurisdiction, so it's a little bit easier for them to manage that scenario.
So that's still privately owned? The
Rogers is still on the
area?
The overwhelming majority, there's quite a bit of land that the city owns. If you go all the way in the back of brush recycling,
Yeah.
right? And then behind brush recycling, there's actually a Corridor Creek that comes up. So we have a surprising amount of land back there, and some of that is floodplain too. And so that was part of the discussion too. Can we swap this for that? And what's the long-term use? Is that where brush recycling stays long-term? And so I'm not really sure where that is today. I think everybody's just kind of going, that's not our worst problem, but it is part that we don't want to lose. And so even though we know we can do a lot of the work with 101, we don't want to lose track of those other parts if we're really going to get the best.
And we can't pretend to try to know what the Robinsons' long-term plans are. You know, are they liquidate, trying to get rid of all their land and sell it and maximize the value of it? If you go up and down O'Connor, we're Dam 101, I don't know if you said where it's gonna be. Dam 101, if you're going north on O'Connor, okay, between McNeil and 620, if you go over a little area, there's a bunch of water down there. It's over to the right side of that is where Dam 101 is gonna go. Okay, and that's, again, Robinson property, but all along, and it affects all that property along O'Connor there, which is gonna be, that'll all be developed someday. And it's gonna be very valuable property, so we're juggling a lot of balls here with the Robinsons, the city of Round Rock, the city of Austin, the county. I mean, there's like, it's like a three-ring circus in there with everybody that's in there trying to get things done, so. These two right here, there's nobody more qualified to handle that than they are, so. And the city is still working on the street stuff. See, I know she doesn't look it because she looked really young, but she's been in the city of Round Rock for 20 years. And I know she's coming up on retirement. I said, I'm not gonna let you retire. I'm gonna put you to work at WCID, so. But anyway, there's working on that storm stuff, because it's like Oak Ridge. If you, from the peak of Oak Ridge down to Creekview, I mean, if it rains on a Monday, trash cans are floating down the street. I mean, I've got video of trash can going about 200 yards down Oak Ridge with the water flow. So, which, you know, and Oak Ridge becomes a river. Now it doesn't stay there. It doesn't affect homes on Oak Ridge like it does you guys on Abbey. Okay, because I know you guys you have a big funnel right there. Just
My house is known as the river runs through it.
yeah. Every time it rains, you kids out there putting sandbags out in the driveway.
Sue lives next
The door, okay.
Her house flooded once,
At least.
yeah, and that's why we hold the gates open and we go out there and we trench, you know.
Well, we had stuff along Creekview too, where the houses on the north side of Creekview, where they're sit down. Okay, so the water running down the street there goes down the driveways and gets in the garages and stuff.
I
So
fixed one of those too, though.
Yeah, you did, right up next to the green belt.
It's
We
also
did fix
true
that.
when we're opening our gate, there's water running out the other side of that property back there in Bluff is,
Yeah,
a lot of yards in Bluff flood along the same
Right.
road.
yeah, because you can see the water coming
Well, yeah,
out the front yard.
I did actually buy a house. I was gonna remodel and make mine, then I changed my mind on Bluff that when it rained,
Yep.
there was about 8 inches of water sitting in the backyard.
Yep,
Yeah.
and then it sits in their front
Days for it to go
yard.
away.
Oh, yeah.
But there's several houses right along there, along that nice flat part of Bluff
Yep.
that just doesn't go anywhere. Lime Rock, between Bluff and Lime Rock. Anyway, that's another issue, but the city is working on that. We're staying on top of them, and we can thank Alicia for getting the ball rolling on that, because she was actually with the city when all that project got started. And
And they're also starting to, you know, they did replat the land behind us.
Right.
On Abbey and Bluff, they've replatted that. And they're not supposed to be able to build on that unless they have the money put up to develop the site, I guess, the sewers and things like that.
correct, and the city is very aware of the issue in your area over there, the Abbey and Penny
And
and
actually, as
stuff.
part of that replat, one of the things that we were able to get the drainage easement behind y'all's fence that was
There you
never
go.
really recorded. So there's that storm sewer that's down in the corner when you head towards Bluff. And so we've done some ditch work a little bit in the past, and then we did a couple of like, please or don't yell at us or whatever. We've done things, and now they have an easement, so we can actually do some things in the back. And then there's some things in the front, and you know, it's really interesting what's gone on sort of in your areas, because we hear people historically like it's changed.
Yep,
But the development hadn't changed a whole lot. And what we think is, you know, if you don't know, you guys are all living on the quarry too. And it's pretty much all quarry
oh,
filled.
we know that.
Yeah, not everybody does. And it's always fun when like you peel open y'all's streets and like what comes out. But what we think's happened is just
Or
the amount
put
of infiltration, or what I grew up calling alligator hole, which is the Round Rock West,
Yeah.
whatever. You know, the amount of sort of sediment that's settled in over the years, that just things don't infiltrate as well here as they used to. All those pockets and niches of when it was rocks this big that were just used to fill up the quarry, just over time, all that sort of settled in, and so the water does, it just sits. And it really shouldn't on land that's sitting on the Edwards. That should, you know, go more in. And it's the same thing in an alligator hole, like, you know, there's, I don't know, 8, 10 feet now of muck
At the bottom of that.
at the bottom of that thing now, where it used to be, you know, that water would go in the lake. There's no real way for that water to get out of Alligator Hole. And so a couple years ago, it came up and it started creeping back up Lakeview, is it Lakeview Cove?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, hey, it's kind of running the wrong way, and it's not moving. And so when we started asking people, we're like, yeah, just over time, it used to come up and kind of go down and infiltrate. Now that water comes in and it just sits. So that's another thing we're looking at, like, you know, how do we deal with that long term?
Yeah, water does what water wants to do. You know, you're not gonna make water do very much. I mean, it's gonna go where it's gonna go. The best thing you do is try to trap it, and that's what we're doing. I swore I would never, I worked in the back end of political campaigns for 25 years, and I swore I would never run for a political office. I had 2 or 3 people approach me about this, and I ran for it. And now I know why I've never done it, not being on it, but the election part of it. Not really being on the part of it. And I plan on running for at least one more 4-year term till the dam gets built. Now, as a director, I'm still responsible for, with the other directors, for the other 23 dams. So I can't just go into every meeting and say, hey, we're only gonna talk about 101 and nothing else, because we have a big wide area from like a San Gabriel River right down to the county line between roughly
It's
Hutto and Leander.
Sort of, you know, that peak that would flip over San Gabriel, so.
Yeah, so that's roughly the area we have, southern Williamson County, with 23 dams. You don't see these all the time because they're back behind neighborhoods and they're protecting neighborhoods.
If you've been to a park and there's a lake, it's a dam.
and
There's one natural lake in the state of Texas. It's a Caddo over on the Louisiana border.
Even that lake was dammed by trees.
Yeah, it wasn't, this
Yes.
was, so it's the only one they refer to as a natural lake.
It was
but-
an accident, but it was.
Oh, and one important thing that is relevant, 101 will not have a lake unless it's flooded. We are building and designing that different. I was adamant, you know, along with the landowners, that we minimize the impact when we put this thing in. As any of y'all that live back there and sort of back behind Robert, that water runs all the time. You know, Lake Creek's always got water, and there's an amazing wildlife. It's the most beautiful sort of land back there. And so we are designing this thing like what we would call an overgrown detention pond. Basically, the water that runs every day in Lake Creek when we're done will still just pass right through. And in what you call a 2-year storm, your most frequent storm, that's about all you guys can handle before you start flooding. So it'll get up to that, and then after that, it'll start slowing water down. But basically, it'll be a creek that always runs, and then when it gets too much, it'll start ponding up as a dam, and then it'll go right back down. So this dam cycles in a matter of 2 or 3 days. You know, most of the others, you know, they have a lake, and some of that's because they were supposed to have sediment, but they have that ability. This one will not be that. So it'll look different. So if you've got an image in your head, you know, we were talking to Williamson County about like, hey, this could be a great park back there, something for you to think about. And they're kind of bummed that it wouldn't have a lake. But we're like, hey, there's so much more usable land, so we'll see. We're going to continue to talk to them about their master plan and see if that makes sense.
Y'all may or may not have seen in Community Impact, the Dam 7 over on Brushy Creek on Palmer, you know where that big lake over there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that dam there is not a lot unlike the dam that the 101 is gonna be, correct?
Close to it. yes.
Roughly the same size, same type spillway and stuff?
About 58 feet high.
Yeah, and I
Over a
mean,
mile.
it's really cool dam. It's got spillways that run like a accordion. It's crazy how it worked. When they were sitting there explaining to me how these things work and tricked water into thinking, you know, you got 300 feet of spillway when you really only have 100 feet of it. I mean, but it's going to be like that, but no lake. And like she said, it's going to be running through.
That's right.
I've always wondered, where does Lake Creek actually start?
Oh God.
So, sort of out, you know, top of my head, it'd probably be back sort of Forest North would be the name Lake Creek, because where we're actually putting the structure is sort of Davis Spring, Davis Branch. So the area it's been around, if you're from this area, you know what Forest North is, they have all kinds of flooding problems. But just below 620, east of 183,
Okay.
Town and Country, Optimist, baseball fields, if you got little people.
There's a school over there, I don't remember the name.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Forest North Elementary, and I can't remember what else is there, but
Deer Park. Yeah.
Deer Park Middle School, maybe.
My wife grew up at that house where my field.
So the Lake Creek originates all the way back there, and there's parts of it that basically all the way go back to Anderson Mill, right? And so we
Does it come out of a spring, or is it?
no,
built up of
it's just
something
a
else?
natural sort of drainage way that so.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, the water that you're seeing, you know, there's probably some springs along there because we've got kind of that activity.
Yeah.
And we've got sort of out of the Edwards, right? You'll go down or go into the Edwards
Sure.
and then something will pop back up. But really more the origination, or what we think of the headwaters, is just sort of that drainage basin.
Oh,
way
okay,
back in
okay.
Andersonville. Because we have a lot of those people calling, why are we paying this fee? Because they're all paying too, and we're like,
Yeah.
because you're helping to make sure you don't flood the guys downstream.
See, the three, you guys, and Charles and you, all three of y'all are probably three of the lowest houses in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's right.
What, Lake Creek or
At the,
They're on Lake
At the
Creek.
end of Lake
They're on the
Creek.
south side of Lake Creek Drive.
605,
I'm
607?
605.
403.
Winner.
Winter chicken dinner. Your house,
Control house
the
for the
control
most part.
house, yeah, your house is the control house.
Yeah, I figured, yeah.
Our goal is to fix you, and if we can fix you, we can fix all
We
of
Oh,
fix
us.
that would be
everything else.
awesome.
And
So,
Charles-
I don't know that, I don't know that
Charles
I'll
lives
get it
down, right?
completely fixed, but I will make it a heck of a lot better.
Yeah.
And you guys live about.
We're next door to him.
We're
next door.
Yeah, so you guys are, yeah, in a whole different thing.
Kent.
First, is there a map available of this publicly available to see or online?
So probably the easiest thing, I believe it's still up, is
On the
to,
city.
you can Google Lake Creek watershed should come up, but on the city's website, if you go in and you type Lake Creek, they've got a page and it has a couple of our maps. We're working on our website, we'll get some other stuff up, but,
In the city, it's like a 20,000-foot view on the city. It's not in real detail, but you can see where the dams.
well, they help you get oriented, and so, and then, like, Community Impact's done a couple articles lately, Round Rock West, or Round Rock Leader just did one 2 weeks ago. Community Impact, North Austin just called us to ask about what's going on, so that, Community Impact, they do great graphics, so
Great
much better than, I make engineering looking maps, but Community Impact makes really pretty maps, so, if you start Googling a little bit of Dam 101, you should get some from them, but for now, the best place other than that is what the city has posted, and we'll get something up here pretty soon. Now that we're back in the lead, the district, we'll do that, it's been a busy 3 months. Yes, sir.
Second question, I am regularly sending pictures of the front door flooring to Dylan
Johns.
John. Thank you.
Great young man.
Is there anybody else I should be in contact with?
He's there. So what's kind of still there at the city is there's a gentleman named Frank Sanchez, or Federico Sanchez, who's a senior engineer. He's working with Dylan, and they're the two guys that are coming out. And even though we're having engineers do some of the work, they're coming out knocking on doors and asking questions and getting pictures. Because what that helps us do is we're figuring out the modeling that we all used to do, and what a lot of things were done in the past, doesn't pick up the level of sophistication we need. And the pictures and stuff you guys do as we go to this 2D modeling help us tremendously to calibrate those models, right? So models are just that. They're, only as accurate if, you see rainfall models and the weatherman never gets it right. So we use that data from you guys. And one of the things we found out when they started doing the Round Rock West models is you guys were telling us, hey, the water's going this way, the water's going this way. And we tend to plan a bigger storm. So we're like, but no, the water's going this way. And what we found out is the water does go this way till you get to a little bit bigger storm. And then the water goes this way and starts crossing the block. And because the water's crossing the block, now it's places it's not supposed to be.
Right.
And so each storm frequency that we were looking at, you're actually getting a different routing of the water. So when we were getting calls, and sometimes they weren't the most intense storms, so we don't always get involved in those, and we were getting, and that's where pictures and especially video help tremendously. So that's what Dylan and Fred are doing, because they're trying to take those models that the guys are doing, and feel free to try to sucker them out here for an update, and see if you can get them to come out, because they're supposed to be coming out and talking to you guys if they haven't already real soon. That's what we were doing when I was walking out. But that's the idea. It's a lot more complex over there than people realize. I learn things every time I come. The Gates thing was fascinating. The whole we were out of town and we didn't know where Gates and they were flooded.
Which is exactly what I want to talk about. Mike Lawson, 700 Parkview. So over the last couple of years, we've had some big rains and we've had the front. So I'm wondering what I can do to help this, because fortunately they happened when I was there and awake. But if they happen when I'm gone or in the middle of the night, I'm not.
Get Ken to come over and put some sandbags up for you.
No,
He's a Gate.
no, I'm a gate.
We're a Gate.
I want to figure out how do I change my gate and a fence so that it complies with city zoning and yet lets the water through and yet doesn't let my
You
dogs
guys
escape.
should have, you shouldn't have any zoning sort of restrictions, and I don't know if you have any
No,
HOA stuff.
you shouldn't have any issues with your gate.
So I have thought about cutting the boards at the bottom bar and putting a grill in. So
If you-
Small enough for, my dog can't get out.
Right, that's the key,
But
is
the
keep it-
water can go
if
through
you-
and I don't have to do anything.
There's
The
nothing
grate
wrong with
will
that.
hold the debris that's coming through the running water.
It depends on how much debris, everybody's dealing with a different amount.
We
and how-
have a lot of debris.
You know, you can do ones with spindles and sort of more open. You can even do ones that are traps where they get enough water and they'll spring open. And then,
And you're saying I won't really have a problem with city zoning if I.
and Mike will take care of that for
No,
you if you do,
no,
but
okay. I've been down the road on every fence.
But the
property
only
in the city.
fence-
My home and the next two to the west of me, we all are trying to open our gates and block them open to rather make sure they stay open.
Yep.
But I'd rather do something that's automatic.
Right, right.
You're not gonna run into any trouble with
Okay.
any city issues monkeying with your gate.
It goes the other way. It's more if you wanted to add fences in the front or on a corner, that's where the city rules you.
That's where the fence ordinance comes in. You can't go higher than 8 feet, and you
Yeah.
can't put them any further than the front structure of
All
your
I want
house.
to do is let the water go through without having me to do anything and not let my dogs sneak
You're
out.
fine. Mike, you'll be fine.
No, Ken and I appreciate that quite a bit, because we have dogs too. One thing that we've learned to do along our driveway is we get out there in our rain gear and hoe with hose to make a tunnel so that it'll go down farther. But I did realize when the neighbors put the sod on, their sod is higher here. So though this will run this way, but then it goes to the front of their house now, you know, and sits there because this part of the grass is higher. than-
Yeah, people don't realize
And
every
they-
little bit makes a difference.
Where if they had leveled it, you know, the water would have kept going down, but now kind of banks and goes to the front of their house.
We're dealing with that actually in one of our new structures, and they have like seed grass here, and they put sod here, and it's just enough so that when the water wants to come down the structure, it's just running right down that edge of that sod and going to kind of.
Yep.
I think you had a couple more questions, I see time.
I didn't have another question,
Okay.
it's a suggestion. One of our solutions was to give a key to the gate to Terry
Our
and
neighbors,
Sue,
too,
because
when they weren't
they're
home.
the ones whose house actually flooded, ours doesn't, or hasn't so far.
Being out of town is a little bit.
Just gave them a key to the gate, and they opened it.
Which brings me to something I wanted to mention for those of you that do live along the creek. We've had a couple of really close rain events similar to Hermine since Hermine, okay? That's brought the creek up over the bridge and stuff, or nearly over the bridge. But if you'll notice, when we get those rain events now, the city has their crews out there with the backhoes on all 3 bridges, digging
Yes.
the debris out during the rain, during the
Yes.
storm.
Yep.
Well,
And before
backtrack
that-
a little bit. Right after that storm happened, the city spent about $50,000-$60,000 going through and cleaning up the creek as best they could.
Right.
If you look at the surveys of our neighborhood, it is wacky, because some places, 4 or 5 houses, the easements properties go to the middle, and then the next 4 or 5 houses, there's a little city easement down in between there. So the issue is access to all of that to clean it out. So they've cleaned it out, and we've caught neighbors throwing debris and grass and branches into the creek. And we've called the city on them, so.
One other question that I have is they're developing that land behind us, and yesterday there was machinery back there. I called Mike and told him about it, and he's digging, you know, and then they had some other machine out there. Don't ask me what it is, I couldn't see over the fence. But the ground is flat back there now. The trees and the grass that was there has been scraped. Now, how is that gonna affect?
They'll have to go back in and do something with that.
How is that gonna affect my next rainstorm?
In the interim, it will run off a little bit quicker if they haven't done something to help check that. So you may want to reach out and talk to the development, and we could connect her with planning.
We'll try to hook that up, but the end game is that the city has a certain design that they're gonna have to do that will not add any more runoff issues into the neighborhood. So they're gonna have to keep their water somehow or another there, or move it downstream
So
without.
should he have contacted someone there at the city?
He probably already has, and there
I'm
may
sure
be
he
some
has.
things already done that you can't see that are like right behind the fence that help you check that, but I just don't know.
I don't know either, that's
I'll
why.
go by there and take a look at it.
Okay, Mike, but make sure you wear long pants and
Yeah.
boots and stuff, because there's lots of cat stuff.
So one
Well,
thing that
this time of
we'll,
year.
one last thing that we'll continue to kind of get you guys ready on, the district, in addition to having rain gauges and gauges to tell you how much water's in the lakes, we have a few stream gauges. And when they put them in, they're on Brushy and Lake Creek, like at I-35, and they're on Brushy down there by Kenny Ford, and there's one way back there. And as we begged and pleaded, we got them to put on one on Lake Creek at O'Connor, okay? And then the city spent the money and surveyed in a real elevation. And so we've been doing some back of envelope sort of calculations so that we could try to use that to sort of forecast. Because you know what, it likes to flood here when you guys are all sleeping. So in the next couple months, I'm going to continue to kind of work with the guys at the city. We have a pretty decent idea now that we can use that gauge and say, when this gauge has this activity going on, this will be happening, and we're about to put Deepwood underwater, or we're about to put Round Rock West, or we're about to put houses. So we're going to try, it's not going to be exact, but the nice thing is you can go in and subscribe to these gauges, and when we figure out what these settings are, you'll be able to say, hey, send me a text when it's hitting 7:15, and I know start putting it up on the cabinets, right? So we're going to continue to use it, get a little bit more information, refine that so that we're comfortable to put it out for people to use it. But instead of Mike going out at 3 in the morning and going, it's about this time, we're going to hopefully have something, because the other thing that allows us to do, if it's quickly rising, right? If it's all of a sudden goes up. Because what happened in Hermine, and if you were here, you may not realize, even if you were here at the time, it did not rain much here. It rained like hell upstream.
We got about 13 inches here.
We got a lot here.
Not in this neighborhood, no. Actually, not as much as what, the bigger issue was being happening right there.
Right.
So it's the same thing that's happened a couple times. We closed AW Garage once or twice. It wasn't even raining around Rock, but it rained so much upstream. So we're going to try to use that to give you guys a little bit of advance notice.
And the other thing that happens when we get those rain events, these guys are monitoring it and communicating, and what happens is if it gets severe, the city will open up the Emergency Operations Center, and they'll start coordinating what needs to be done to protect the
Right,
lives of
and
the
that's so the city can start seeing. So those guys are learning, those drainage guys, like he was saying, they come out and clean things out, so.
One of the speakers I hoped to have here tonight was Dorothy Miller with the Emergency Operations Center of the City of Round Rock. She couldn't make it, but we'll try to have her in another meeting to talk about what happens with that and how that works. So.
Well, then you have the countywide emergency management, and that's where Alicia will be. Then I'll be in the field also, and we'll be communicating back to her and that group in Williamson County.
Yeah, luckily we don't have to wake up anymore at every storm, because you need a much bigger storm to affect the dam. But it doesn't take much at this local level. But we're going to continue to work with, I told my guys when I, made the decision to, when I thought I was heading towards retirement and Mike redirected me, I'm not going anywhere, and we'll continue to help them, and we're going to get them coached up and continue to work with you guys. So while there's not a dam, we can get you whatever little bit of warning we can, and continue to educate people to learn about those tools, and that's all helpful.
Okay.
Turn around, don't drown.
Any more questions? We got it. Yes.
How do you subscribe to get the data from the stream gauges?
So I would like to say the simplest thing is go to my website. It's kind of messy right now, so.
We're working on it.
Can you push emails out to all these folks? Yeah. So you can go to the USGS site proper. But the gauge name is like a number this long. And I'm trying to get some shortcuts, but guess who's also on furlough? USGS. So.
This is the one that's over on O'Connor.
Right, so what you're gonna look for is a stream gauge, so we'll get you guys, you can go through and click on our website right now and you'll see an interim that I have hooked up, but it doesn't list the stream ones. So let me get a little bit more information, we'll get it out, and then that's what you do, you can click on that. You can also click on, for example, Dam 9 is the closest one to you guys. If you want to know, hey, how much raining, or if it rains more than 2 inches, send me a text. You can tell it to do all those things.
UpperBrushyCreek.wcid.org is the website. And you can go there and learn more about what we do. We're trying to get out on this education program right now to help people understand more about what WCID is. And again, I had no clue what it was till Tropical Storm Hermine, and that's when I met her. It was about 3 or 4 months after Hermine. I'm down there at the city pounding on doors and stuff about what we got to do about this. So a lot of people don't know what we do. That's what we're trying to.
You just said.
UpperBrushyCreek.wcid.org.
And
That's Water Control and Improvement
I
District.
got some cards I can give you too. It's really long. It's kind of much. Yes, sir.
I was just gonna say, don't get frustrated if you go to the USGS website and you put your information in to get text off of those rain gauges. It may take a few trial and error to get the settings right, because I know the first time I went in there and did that, I was getting text all the time and it was driving me crazy, so.
So ideally, that's what we
You
want to
may
do.
have to adjust your
As we
settings.
get comfortable that we know what the parameters are, then we'll almost like help you guys write the script, because you can, and then you'll, 3 in the morning, why is this thing,
You were just going too fast.
It's
You get a lot more
set up for
notifications.
science people. but we're gonna co-opt it and create a cheat for you guys.
Any more questions? All right, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it. I'm back to the neighborhood hat, and I think we asked earlier if there were any other questions, any other issues that we were know about. Got a couple of latecomers that maybe, nope. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.